Hello, everybody. I hope you had a productive weekend and that you are looking forward to the upcoming holiday. I am filming here at the Oregon coast. I've been camped out here grading your papers all weekend, and I want to show you my view outside. How beautiful, right? It won't let me show you that and my head for clarity. So sorry about that. That's a far better view. Um, by now, you should have completed your annotated bibliographies. Um, there is a section to upload your files in Moodle under the week entitled November 24th through November 30th. Going into this week, of course, there's no class on Monday, and that's because my intent is for you to use this week for your pre-write, your writing plan, and of course, some of your drafting. So just to give us a little context, last class we delved into the idea of synthesis, and this was when you looked for themes, relationships, and connections across multiple sources. So we had a class activity, remember, where I gave you 3 separate sources and you worked to identify connections and form opinions about them. Given that you have submitted your annotated bibliographies, hopefully by this point, you should have a minimum of 5 sources that you are working from and that you have already started this process on. From these connections and relationships that you found on your own, you should be able to form your own claims, right? Your own opinions that are going into the argument that you're going to be forming. And these claims, of course, are going to prop up your main argument. Remember that I've asked that your main argument is going to be some sort of a call to action, a call for reform, potentially a call for research, or even a call for someone to adopt and accept your way of thinking. These claims that you generate by finding your relationships and connections, these are going to serve as the framework for your writing. So the connections and themes that you have will be your reasoning, and then the sources, of course, are going to serve as your evidence. So today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about free writing and looping, and then also a writing plan and drafting, just because those are all the things that you should be engaging in this week. So when we talk about free writing as a writer, we are talking about writing without paying attention to rules for grammar, rules for conventions, right? It's strictly about connecting our ideas in our head and getting them on the paper. So for this particular assignment, what I would encourage you to do is review your notes, review all your sources, and then put them away. Next, you want to set aside 5 to 10 minutes and write about your topic nonstop. So that's anything that comes into your mind. Remember, we're putting away anxiety about sounding good, about making sure our verbs are correct, right? We're just writing for the sake of writing. When we've completed this 5 or 10 minutes, we look over what we've written and then we identify prominent and existing ideas. Hopefully, there's more than one. And once we finish with this first pre-write, you can go ahead and start something that we call looping. Looping, I feel like looping is the wrong word for it. I was actually just explaining this to somebody else. Looping suggests that it's circular thinking, but really it's not. It looks a lot more like branching. So what you do is you take one of these ideas that originated from your pre-write, from your free write, and then you engage in multiple rounds of free writing. So let's say that first session of free writing, you came up with 3 interesting ideas that you thought could yield more creativity and more ideas. You would take each one separately and free write about them. And then you would continue to engage into this in this process until you generated enough ideas that you felt like you had plenty to say in your paper. This helps us to explore connections in seemingly unconnected sources and ideas. Sometimes we've looked at an article, the number of articles too many times, and we can't really see them clearly. But sometimes if we put them away and we just allow our brain to take over and we start becoming creative, um, yeah, we can develop more ideas. Again, you want to do this as many times as is necessary. So it's possible that you do this 2 or 3 times and you're all set. It's also possible that you um, have to spend an entire day free writing. Like maybe that's just one of your steps as a writer. But again, just techniques to get ideas going. Once you have a bunch of ideas generated, it's going to be time to start your writing plan. So remember, we talked about academic writing. Well, really, all good writing needs a process, right? We don't just sit down and write the night before. You have to have steps. So you've done your research, you've done some of your brainstorming and organizing, you've done some of your free writing and looping. You should now have enough ideas to put together some sort of plan for how you want to write. Now, for some of you, this is going to look like an outline. For others, this will be a list, but essentially it is a skeleton of what you plan to write about. Remember that paragraph 1 should include information related to your rhetorical situation. So, who is involved in this topic that you're researching? Um, how big is this issue that you're presenting? What are the potential political and social conversations going on around it? Again, you may want to consider who is your audience and what is your connection to this. This could potentially help yield some information for that first paragraph. Now, typically, you will want to include a thesis, but because this is going to include your position and the claims that you are using to argue your position, I suggest that you wait until the very end to put this together. But your thesis should go at the beginning so that your reader, me, I know what to expect when I read your papers. The paragraphs that follow, these are going to include your claims and reasoning, right? So this is those connections that you made, those are the claims that support your argument. The evidence that you found, right? Those expert opinions, those statistics, these are going to fill in your paragraphs. Now, organization for this is going to vary. It's going to depend on each person's individual thinking. My advice to you is look for groups and subgroups. Stick to hierarchies, like start broad and get specific, just because that's how our brains work. And of course, finally, you'll need a conclusion where you restate your thesis and your points. I think somewhere in there, I also asked you to include a counter argument. So this is good to include maybe towards the end of your report there. I have included a sample pre-write plan under this week's section in Moodle, just in case you need a little guidance. But once you have your plan, it's important for you to start writing. Remember that the more important the project is that you're working on, the more drafts that you need. This assignment carries the point value that's the bulk of your grade. So it's worth making sure that you have multiple drafts and multiple edits. That's really all I have for you. So I hope you guys have a good week and a happy Thanksgiving. And I'm really grateful for each and every one of you. That's it. Bye.